Okay, and we're live. Hi, everybody. Thanks a lot for joining us today for our second edition of the Ask Us Anything webinar, something a little bit new from us as a team, just trying to create another forum for anybody who has questions for us to throw them in. So we have a set of questions that you've all happily sent in advance, and we're grateful for that. So we'll be going through those questions to start with. But as we go through, if that sparks an additional question, or if you're carrying some other questions with you in your back pocket already, please do feel free to submit them into the chat function on the webinar in the right-hand side of your screen under the chat box, and we'll pick those up at the end of the session. So without further ado, with lots to carry on with, let's get started with a quick round of intros. So my name's Mike. I'm one of our customer success managers here at Leadfeeder. I work primarily with our UK and Western European customers, and strangely some Australians as well, but I've not quite got enough of those yet to justify a trip out there, but one day. So welcome. Next up, over to Carlo.
Yeah, it's me. Hi, my name is Carlo. I'm one of the product managers. I'm the PM for the integrations team and the data quality team. So basically, I work with mostly those teams and the developers and the stakeholders. And I'm currently based in London.
Hello, everyone. I'm Binia. I'm customer support specialist at Leadfeeder, and I take care of our support in European time zones. I'm located in Helsinki, in our headquarters in Finland, and it's nice to have you all here today.
Fantastic. Okay, question one from David. Why does Leadfeeder require Google Analytics to uncover leads? What if we use KISS metrics for analytics instead? Pinya, do you want to take this one?
I can take this one. Really good question. Let's start with the fact that Leadfeeder is put it on Google Analytics. So all the data, or basically all the data we get from your website is from Google Analytics. So that's why we don't kind of like integrate with KISS metrics or any other those kind of tools. Carlo, do you have anything to add here? Or shall we move to the next question?
No, I think you explained it perfectly, so we can move on to the next one.
Great.
Nice. Okay. Next up, can you find specific information like the person that looked at our website on Leadfeeder? Pinya again.
Yeah, that's actually a good question, because this is something that I got asked or I get asked on support almost every day. First of all, unfortunately, or it's good that it's illegal in many countries to actually track individuals. So that's why we are able to identify only companies that are visiting your website. But there is a few things that you can do to get more information about the website visitors. First of all, you can use our MailChimp integration. And if you're not using MailChimp, or if you are, on top of that, I recommend you to set up Leadfeeder Booster. With that booster, it's a little tiny script that you add to your website. You can see in Leadfeeder how many people from the company has visited your website. So that way you can actually see how many people have been visiting your website. Another thing is, or it's good to keep in mind that you don't actually need to know who from the company have visited your website when actually there is a need in the company that they want to purchase your product or service. So if there is, let's say, you have a Leadfeeder booster added to your website, and you can see that there is 5-10 people or different employees visiting your website, especially if they go to your product and pricing page, you probably can notice that, hey, there is someone actually really willing to get our help or get our products. So to answer that question, can you find specific information like the person that looked at our website on Leadfeeder? The answer is no, but with Leadfeeder Booster, you can get some more information.
Nice. Next question up is, how can I use Leadfeeder with GDPR? So considering that GDPR is now in full effect, I'm reading into this question, are there any implications for using Leadfeeder considering GDPR? So I'll field this question. No, there's no conflict between Leadfeeder as a product and GDPR. The information that we're collecting in order to be able to identify organizations is on a company level. So it's by its definition not personal information, therefore not protected in that way by GDPR. We then enrich that data with publicly available, though not free, data, such as contacts from databases that we integrate with that are not tracked individuals who have definitely visited your site, but they are people who work for these organizations, and that information is in the public domain anyway. In terms of what we suggest around GDPR, though this is not legal advice, what we would typically suggest you to do, if this is something you're concerned about, is to add a statement within your privacy policy, something along the lines of saying that you're using a third-party tool to analyze and repurpose website analytics, and that should be perfectly sufficient. However, if anybody has any further questions about this, if this is something that people have any concerns around, we have actually recorded an entire webinar on this topic, and you'll find it if you search in our website for it's called GDPR Guidelines for B2B Outbound Sales, and that will give you a much broader context from which to work around GDPR. But for anybody with any concerns, nothing to worry about. Next up, I have the next question as well. What is the best way to organize leads? And actually, I think there's a question immediately after this. The most efficient way of contacting the companies which have visited your webpage. So for simplicity's sake, what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen and give you a few thoughts on organizing leads and then what to do with them afterwards. So if I just enable screen sharing, I enable sharing a tab, and fingers crossed this works right now. Hopefully everybody can see what I'm seeing. So this is us just looking at our main demo account with a Pipedrive integration, and here's a feed I made earlier for the purposes of this conversation. So in terms of the best way of organizing leads, the suggestion I always make is that your best bet is to create custom feeds that match as closely as possible to what your either your ideal customer profile is in general, or what each member of your sales team might be looking at. So for example, in this feed that I've created, if we just scroll down and take a look at the settings, you'll see that I've added filters to a feed that say, are these leads in the UK? Are they of a certain size? In this case, do they have more than 51 employees or 51 and above? And are they classified as within the IT sector? So at that point, I've done an organization, a piece of organization in and of itself to organize those leads in such a way that if I was the salesperson working these opportunities, I'd have already narrowed down a set of potential organizations to work with. Once you've done that, you've taken the large pool of leads down to something eminently more manageable. Then you can move to what was the next question, which is how do you effectively contact them? So if this feed just hypothetically was also looking at a particular area of your website, you could say you've got people in the UK who the company's of a certain size, they're in the right industry, they're looking at content on your site. That should start to give you a really narrow idea of who the person would be that you would be best speaking to in order to sell to them. And then it's a case of working those through your sales process as you typically would. So a lot of people will use, for example, LinkedIn to make the first connection, to send them something relevant based upon what you believe they might have been viewing on your site, or particular content that might be the next thing on that they might choose to read, following what they've already done on your site, and then move through the steps you usually would. Maybe do additional qualification via Leadfeeder feeds or via an SDR team, and then contact them with your best sales pitch, I suppose. So hopefully that sort of answers both questions, but if anything about that isn't clear, then obviously we can pick that up right after the questions that we've got lined up. So next up is a question from Erka, which is, the most efficient way of contacting the companies who have visited your webpage, which was somewhat answered already. And then the next one up is from Anna. Why don't some companies have associated contacts under Leadfeeder contacts? Carlo, would you like to take that one?
Yeah, sure. So as Mike was saying, the way we show you suggested contacts in Leadfeeder is by using third-party databases mostly, because of course you are GDPR compliant, so we have no legal way of getting contacts anywhere else. So what we do is we subscribe to databases and in general other places where people who work in that company have chosen to make their contact details publicly available, basically. So what we do is we use the databases and we show the contacts to you. Now, of course, in some cases, we don't actually have any match in those databases for that particular lead. And those are the cases where basically we cannot show you contacts for that lead. Now, having said that, because I work with the data team, this is actually one of the areas where we are investing more time and resources. So we're going through and measuring how many contacts we have on average for each lead. And then we are trying to connect to more databases to provide you with more contacts. So hopefully this will become less of an issue in the future.
Nice. Next up, which I think is also going to be one for you, Carlo.
Yep.
What information is pushed to the CRM?
Yes. So the main information, of course, is other than, of course, the name of the lead itself, it's the data about the visits. So, which pages they visited, how much time they spent on each page, and so on. And you can toggle the setting based on whether you connected manually or automatically. So if you push your leads through automation, then you can select whether you want to add the visits or not. And the same thing, you can do it manually. There are other things you can push from Leadfeeder to the CRM. For instance, you can create deals and you can create tasks or activities depending on the way it's called in your CRM, and that means that you can effectively create objects or items in your CRM by using the Leadfeeder UI. So in that case, you will push more information, as in rather than just creating a company, you will create a deal as well. So one deal will basically pop up in your pipeline in your CRM, and you can also create a task or an activity where you assign that particular task to one of your salespeople, so that you know that if you're interested in that particular Leadfeeder, then someone will follow up with that thing, basically.
Nice, perfect. Next question up is from Megan, who says, how do I filter out leads that I don't want to see? Pinya, would you like to take that one?
Yes, I can absolutely take that one. If the case is that you are the only user of your Leadfeeder, I would recommend that hide all the leads that you are not interested in. If there is many Leadfeeder users, and you know that someone else, your colleague, would be interested in to that lead that you aren't interested in, I would say go and create custom feeds or custom feed for yourself. So you will see only leads that you are interested in. If you are not interested in some certain leads on your company level, I would say you can either add traffic filters, or you can create a brand new GA view and add, Google Analytics view, and you can add that lead here. So you will see only leads that you are interested in. But when you are creating a new Google Analytics view or adding traffic filters or hiding leads, please be careful with those, because that means that you will probably miss some leads, and those leads might be something that you are interested in later on. But anyway, even if you are just one user, if there is only one Leadfeeder user in your company, or there is multiple of you, I recommend you to go and create custom feeds so you can categorize leads in the way that you want to see them. Do you, Mike, have something to add here?
No, I don't. I think that pretty much sums it up. I think custom feeds is going to be the way a lot of the time to solve a lot of these questions that we have. So next one up is from Mikko, which says, how do companies use the CRM integration, which is another one for you, Carla?
Yes, sure. So there are two main ways my clients use the integration with the CRM. One is effectively you look at the data in Leadfeeder, you spot potential companies you're interested in because they visited your website, and then you manually, either by using the Leadfeeder UI or using your CRM, you manually create a deal in your pipeline, which means sometimes creating a company as well. So basically, I see something interesting in Leadfeeder, then I create a deal and a company in the CRM so that I can follow up there. That's one way. The other way, which is usually after you spend some time playing with Leadfeeder and you understand it better, is to create a custom feed, as Michael's saying, and then you can use automation to automatically push those leads to the CRM. So what you do is basically creating a set of criteria that define the kind of leads you're interested in. And when a new lead comes in that satisfies those set of criteria, then it will automatically get pushed to the CRM. So in that case, you can reach a balance where basically all the market segments you already know about, all the sub-segments, even when you're interested in, you can just automatically push them to the CRM, and you can still use the user interface in Leadfeeder to kind of spot new opportunities and sometimes spot new market even.
Nice, great. And I'm already seeing that some questions are starting to appear within the chat and the question box as well. So please do keep them coming. We're getting through our questions that we have at a rapid pace. So we're looking forward to getting to those as well. Next up is one from Phil, which is any tips on how to find the right person to talk to within larger organizations? Carlo, did you also want to have some?
Yeah, sure. So one thing that perhaps is not really apparent when you use the UI is that, first, we suggest some contacts in the user interface, but you can also filter those contacts by using the role and the country and the seniority of the position. So you can basically say, if this is a big company that visited your website, you can say, well, actually, I want to talk to the marketing manager in England, for instance, right? And then you can just click on the filter and select the suggestion, the contacts that are for that particular role and that person. So of course that's one way. And that is in fact the best way to do it in Leadfeeder. Of course you can always do manual research and go to LinkedIn and find, use the usual filters and methods and check their website and follow them on social media, the usual tactics, so to speak. But it's a nice little trick to just use the filters in Leadfeeder when we have contacts, because it saves you a lot of time, hopefully.
Nice. Next question up is from James. Is it better to have one person take the lead as the main user of Leadfeeder, or is it best for teams in general to all use Leadfeeder? Great question. It really does depend upon a few things. So the structure of your organization, whether or not you have multiple salespeople working similar types of leads, whether or not you have the CRM integration. So one thing I would say as an absolute definite is that it's always best to have an owner within your organization of Leadfeeder, much in the same way as you would with any other system that you have. So maybe the CRM, for example, there's usually somebody who's assigned themselves or is assigned the role of making sure the data stays clean. I would suggest that a similar person would be a really good fit for looking at Leadfeeder and making sure that it's being used as you would expect it to. The other point that I was making, the other caveat I was making, was around whether or not you have the CRM integration. And I'll share my screen again and explain what I mean by that. So if, for example, you have, and I'm now sharing, if, for example, you have the CRM integration within Leadfeeder, in this case, Pipedrive, then it can be quite simple for you to have one primary user within Leadfeeder, and that person will help to set up the feeds, one that we did earlier on in the conversation. And from that, you can automate the process of sending those leads direct into your Pipedrive CRM and into the right person's hands within the organization. And I can show you how to do that. So if we look again at the feed that I had earlier on, we just click edit. You will end up with the standard options you have when you're creating a feed. This one, as I mentioned, pre-done before. If we click across to automation and then we choose send to Pipedrive when new leads appear and click configure, then we can configure for this feed specifically, so leads that are from the UK in the IT sector where the company has more than 50 employees. We can decide what to do with that information. So do we create an organization? Do we create a deal? Do we create activities? What are the priorities against those particular deals? And then assuming that you've set a really narrow focus and looking at exactly the same types of leads that those salespeople typically pick up, it should create a nice steady flow of leads going from Leadfeeder directly into the stage of their pipeline that you have preset here. So to round off, really, depending upon the structure of your organization, how you structure your sales team, and whether or not your marketing team also has some role in that, will really make the decision on whether or not you should have one primary user or multiple. If you don't have the CRM integration, then that's an example where I would probably suggest that everybody should be looking at Leadfeeder, creating the same feeds that we just did there. So if we just go back to it again, create a similar feed, look at exactly what that salesperson is going to be looking at, but rather than sending it off to Pipedrive over an automation, you can assign it to the member of the team who has that account within Leadfeeder. There will be, and you can very quickly create feeds that look at assignment and look at who has been assigned to what within your Leadfeeder account. And then just keep track of your leads from within here. So if we just click on any given lead here, you would hope that through the comment section, you would be looking at perhaps what that salesperson has done. So maybe you can have a rule within your organization that they comment on leads that they have picked up and how they've progressed that through the sales process. And that could be a good proxy for having, or an alternative for having the Pipedrive integration. So I'll stop sharing again, come back over, and hopefully that's given you a good understanding of that one. Next up, Stephen has asked, would you recommend calling email or social platforms for getting in touch with prospects? So I'll pick this up again. This is, I suppose, a follow-on from what I was mentioning before, but what I would generally suggest is to match these leads, as I've already said, with your ideal customer profile, and then treat them as you would treat your other leads often. So if ordinarily you would contact customers or potential prospects via email first or via social first, or however you would typically treat them, then give that a go first. See if that's an effective method for you moving forward. I know that a lot of people do have a lot of success by using LinkedIn, because whilst it's still a professional network, it is somewhat more casual. So you can drop a slightly more casual message to a potential prospect as opposed to a direct email. But I would generally suggest treat those leads how you would treat other leads from other sources with a similar level of qualification, and that should help you to drive success pretty quickly. Next up is a question from Elena, which is, how many users can I add to my account? Pinya, would you like to field that one?
Yes, this is an easy one. Admin users can add as many users to Leadfeeder as you want. So you don't pay for new users. So please feel free and invite all your colleagues and share the joy of the Leadfeeder with them.
Nice, simple one. Next up, if you have 2 websites, do I need to buy 2 Leadfeeder subscriptions? Pinya.
Yeah, this is a really frequently asked question on support, so I can take that one. There is 2 ways to do that. If you have 2 websites, that probably usually means that you have 2 separate Google Analytics views. You can either add those views under the same Leadfeeder account, or you can create separate Leadfeeder accounts for those. If you decide to create 2 separate Leadfeeder accounts, you can either purchase separate subscriptions for those, which you can do for yourself, or if you want, or if you would like to have one bundle deal, you can contact us and we can make a deal for you that includes all the accounts that you have in Leadfeeder. So to answer that questions, you don't need to buy 2 Leadfeeder subscriptions for 2 websites, but you can absolutely do that.
Nice. Options and generosity at the same time. Next up, Daniel, how long does it take for leads to show up in my account after I sign up? Carlo, would you like to take this one?
Sure. So I guess the first thing to talk about is that as soon as you sign up, even if it's just for the trial account, we use the data that's already in your Google Analytics profile to show you the last 30 days worth of lead. So immediately, right off the bat, you log in and you can already see the last 30 days worth of leads, right? So in that case, there's no time. There's no no delay. You will just immediately see them. If you have a lot of leads, it might take a few seconds to load up, but that's all it is. The other part of the question, I guess, is what about new leads? And in that case, it depends. So if you install our booster script, then what we do is we effectively refresh the leads every hour. So every 60 minutes, you will see the leads that have just visited your website. If you don't install the booster script, then we do it once a day. So it's basically every 24 hours, you will see the new leads coming into your website.
So that's a second good reason why do you install Leadfeeder Booster.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Awesome.
Nice. Next up, question from Hans. How can I use Leadfeeder to monitor activity completed by my salespeople from these leads? Okay, I'll take that one, and I will use my trick now for the third time of sharing my screen and having a look into my Leadfeeder account, and I'll give you some ideas. So first off, in the scenario where you have an integration to CRM, this is going to make this a very simple task. So let's just assume that this is a feed that's been created, and let's just imagine, for the sake of conversation, that all of these leads have been pushed directly into Pipedrive. So if I'm the salesperson following up these leads, there's little P symbols against all of them saying that they've all gone in, and we're all happy. So what we can then do is we can look through to the Pipedrive account that we have along the bottom here, and we can see, okay, are there activities? Are there deals? What's happening with them? Are there closed activities? Are there open activities? And immediately you're getting a snapshot into what the salesperson is doing with these opportunities that have come up for your organization. Then at that point, you can do a couple of things. So either you're happy with this and it's fantastic, you don't need to do anything more. You think the process is working fantastic. The team's doing what it should, great. If not, you could, from here, create new activities or create new deals for that person, prompting them either to contact you to discuss this opportunity or to contact the potential customer and report back to you, as an example. You can also choose to follow the company. And if you follow the company, as I think Pinya mentioned earlier in the conversation, you'll end up with a feed of followed companies, which will allow you to have an obvious checkpoint to see whether or not the activities you've tried to prompt by creating those deals and activities for them within the CRM, whether or not that's led to activity being taken afterwards. So it'll be as simple as there'll be a feed that will be your followed feed, your followed companies, and you just click through them as we could do here, going through each one and seeing whether or not the salesperson had picked up what you'd asked them to do. Saying, maybe an even simpler way of looking at it is that if these leads were all being pushed into Pipedrive, then you could do that same exact type of reporting within the CRM as well, and see how many had been sent through, how many new deals have been created, and how many had been moved through the various stages of your pipeline there. If you don't have, just to dig into that CRM integration a little bit deeper, if you have a company that you think is interesting, it doesn't fit into a feed right now, but it probably should do, and it should go into your CRM. It's as simple as clicking to connect the lead to your CRM and deciding whether you want to create a new organization or connecting it to one that already exists. And again, that's just you pushing data over into your system. Now, if you don't have a CRM integration, and it's not a possibility at the moment, you can do what we mentioned before around assignment, so automatically assigning leads based on automation in feeds. You can ask your team to make comments, and they can make a string of comments against a particular lead, telling you what they've done, when they've done it, where they were getting with this particular opportunity. And you can choose to, again, follow the ones that are interesting and are not, and just keep a regular record of how things are going. If you want to complete the circle of that process, I'd suggest adding that as part of your regular meetings with your team. Maybe it's on a one-to-one basis, on a weekly basis, or maybe it's twice a week in a team setting, reviewing what's coming from Leadfeeder. Are people doing what they need to do with it? Are they taking the leads seriously? Are they moving them through the pipeline? And I suppose, if not, why not? Would be the default question to look at there. So hopefully that helps. And I will now move on to the next question, which is from Sana, which says, do you use my data for anything else? Do you share it with anyone? So Carla, I'll let you take that one.
Sure. That's an easy one. No, we don't use it for anything else, and we don't share with anyone. We don't sell it to advertisers. We never share with anyone else. It's not even part of our business model. And of course, the whole thing is GDPR compliant, so we don't do anything with it. Of course, the only exception is when you activate an integration, the two systems, as in Leadfeeder and, for instance, your CRM, need to exchange data. But that's just the data that's relevant for that particular exchange. So it could be information about a deal or a lead or a company. But we, as a company, never share the data with anyone.
Makes sense. So in the only example where there is sharing, you're effectively sharing it with yourself. So
basically, yes.
Nothing to
Exactly.
worry about there.
So you don't share your sorry. So you don't share your CRM data with other users, just with your account users. Yeah.
Yes.
So you don't have to be worried who can see your deals. No one else than you.
Perfect.
Great. Let's go move forward.
Nice. Kevin's question, which I think is the last one before we get to our questions that have been asked in the chat, which is, and I'm going to try and paraphrase this. You've got a site with mixed pages of B2B and B2C focus. We only want data filtered for the B2B pages. Is that possible? Pinya, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, I can take that one. Yeah. So if you have website which is both for B2B and B2C, first of all, we shouldn't be showing you those B2C visits. So you shouldn't be seeing those visits at all. And then if you have a separate like parts of the pages that are for the B2B, you can always create new Google Analytics view, or once again add traffic filters to actually see only those B2B sites in Leadfeeder. And once again, you can hide leads if you see that, hey, I'm not interested in that one. You can go and hide, and then it's gone.
Yeah.
So you might have something to add here.
Yeah, just for everybody's context, when Pinya mentions that we're not showing you the sort of B2C leads, I think what we're referring to there is the fact that we're automatically filtering out ISP visits. So if we can't identify an organization, it just comes through as a network, like in the UK Virgin Media, for example. We eliminate those leads for obvious reasons, hence why you wouldn't see too many of those. But I think of all the suggestions that Pinya made there, I think the idea of, if you have separate areas of your site, if that's a possibility for you, having a view that looks specifically at the B2B section of your product offering is going to help you a lot in terms of filtering out those, filtering down to those relevant opportunities for you. And there we have it in terms of the questions we started with, but there's been a few from the chat. So let's go through those. Hamda's given us 4 questions. So first up, how often do I get lead updates? If someone is on my website now, can I get a notification in real time? Carla, you already sort of addressed this, but do you want to give
not really in real time, but within the hour, if you have the Boost script installed. Otherwise, you'll have to wait for 24 hours, basically, next day.
Fair enough. Question 2, do I get to see what pages the user visited and how long they stayed, what they clicked? Yes, you do. And I'll show you this again. Is there anything else in your questions first, though? No, only this one that will require screen sharing. So I will share my screen again. I will share the tab and go. So on any one of the leads, you'll see you've got contact information and you've got visit information. And this is actually quite a useful one to show you anyway. So for your context, we'll be listing off in visits how many pages an individual customer has or potential prospect has visited and how long they've stayed on each of those pages. But you'll notice on this one, on the length, it shows 0 minutes and 0 seconds. And the reason for that is that what basically Google Analytics, which is where this data is coming from, is doing is it's measuring the time between 2 clicks on your site. So if someone's only visited 1 page and then has vanished off to somewhere else within the depths of the internet, there isn't a second click to measure that time difference. But you can see the visits. Let's see if this one gives us more No, that's only one visit as well. But basically, it will stack up your visits on top of one another. If you're using Booster, it will tell you how many different people from the organization has visited. If we've got the information, we'll be able to show you, usually from Bing, more likely than Google, what keyword that person has come through on. And where there's more than one page, you'll be able to see the visit length as well. So that is that one. Next question is, what should the first email we send to the lead say? The visitor has no idea we captured their info, and we don't know if this is a warm or cold lead. So what should the email say? Oh, great question. It would be easier for me to craft this for you as a response if I knew a little bit more about what you're specifically offering or who you would typically target and how you would target them. But I would say general advice wise would be, you don't need to go in and say, we've been tracking our website and we think that you might be the right person for us. What people often do is they're quite presumptuous, and they will basically start their pitch in the same way they would if they were emailing somebody who's come from another source. Maybe they've met them at an event or something, and it would be, for example, we're offering a certain IT service that we think would be relevant to you. When can we speak? Something like that, something quite presumptive in the sales process. But the idea is not really to try and sort of call somebody out and say, we think you've been on our website, you have been on our website, what's happened? It's more to be a little bit more, I suppose, conversational, a bit more open, and just, I suppose, treat them as you'd like to be treated in terms of, we think this would be of interest to you, would it? And see what happens. And next question, question 4, what does Leadfeeder provide support on giving insight for best practices? How often to email? What the email should say? Email versus LinkedIn for the first outreach, etc. Yes. So again, I'll happily field this one. We have a blog which has a lot of sales specific content on there, including other webinars that we've run, specific use cases, lots of different sales approaches that you can review. In addition, if there's something specific that you'd like, so for example, if you'd otherwise like a training session, somewhat like what we've covered here today, it's a conversation that you can happily have with the customer success team at Leadfeeder, of which I am part, to see what the right strategy would be for you. It's something that's a little bit broader than we can sort of articulate for each person as right this moment. But in terms of providing the support, we pride ourselves on it. We've got endless amounts of content. We've got a help center. We've got a customer success team. We've got Pinya. We've got everything we could possibly offer. So yes, happy to follow up after the call and see if there's any way we can help you as well. This might be one for you, Carlo. Next one up. Do you have a public roadmap of what's to come in 2019, improvements to the product, etc., etc.?
Mm-hmm. We do have an internal roadmap, of course. We don't really have a public roadmap yet. There's 2 things I can say about this. One is that we have what we call an idea portal, where basically you can add your suggestion for features you would like to see in Leadfeeder. And we regularly go through the ideas, and other people can vote the ideas. So when we get a lot of votes for one of the ideas, we try to prioritize it so that you can go up in terms of priorities in the roadmap. But the other thing, without going into the details of the roadmap, is that we, among the other things, among new features to add and new things to do, we are also trying to really get back to basics and improve all the fundamental features that makes Leadfeeder useful, essentially. So, adding more context to the leads and improving the information we can see and helping you with the automation and the integration with the CRMs and so on. So quite a lot of time in the roadmap is spent on improving that and doing user interviews with the clients to improve what we have. Plus, of course, the usual adding more features and more things to the product.
Nice. Okay, we've got a couple of questions, but I think very similar questions in the questions tab from Shedlyne. I hope I've said that right. Apologies if I haven't. And the question, I'm going to boil the question down to say, do you know exactly which contact, not a company but a person, went onto our website and how much time they spent there? And I think that's basically the both questions are basically share the same gist. Carla, would you like to start off? I know we've touched on it a little bit.
Yes. So if we're talking about identifying the actual person who visited the website, I think Pina talked about this before, and it's not really possible. And even if it was, it's not really legal. So that's a no, basically. There are things you can do. Pina already mentioned the fact that if you have the booster, you can at least see how many people visited your website from that particular company. There's also another thing we do, which is if you happen to use MailChimp or your email provider, then you will see in the Leadfeeder user interface, you will see a separate tab called People. And in that tab, you can see that, well, basically, if someone from that particular company visits your website, and if that person happens to be on your email list in MailChimp, then we can correlate the information and tell you that that particular person has actually visited the website. So that is the one case where we can tell you who actually visited the website, provided that that person is already in your email list. And of course, we will show you the email address. And if you have the name in your list, then we will show the name as well. So that is basically the only way we can actually tell you who was on the website. But at the same time, I mean, it's not. Sometimes it's not really that important to understand or to know exactly which person visited the website, because in most cases it's like it's a more, you know, it's a bigger effort to actually make the sales and to get in touch with them, and usually you need to get in touch with more than one person anyway. So I guess in ideal world it would be great to have the information, but it's illegal anyway, so there's not much we can do with that.
Okay. I can probably field this next one, Colin, unless you want to, which is from David, which is this only via MailChimp? What about other email service providers like HubSpot and Active Campaign? It is just MailChimp at the moment, yes. I guess in theory it could be extended to other email services, and that's, I mean, it is on our roadmap. It's just not something we will work on in the very next few months, but it is something we are looking into. Yeah. Okay, nice. I think we've got a couple of other comments. I did pronounce your name right, Shedlyne. That's fantastic. Glad to hear it. Hamda has said, if you don't know the exact person that's on the site, the emails we're sending might be going to the wrong person. It could be a wasted effort. How do we work through this? So again, sort of coming back to, and Hamda, I will get to your next question as well. Sort of coming back to what Carla was just saying right there, and sort of what I was saying before around the sales process, which is that if you neatly define as far as you possibly can the ideal customer profile, you're going to start to see that you are more often than not going to be targeting the right people with the right message. Especially, I think I'm remembering this correctly. You mentioned in one of your other comments that you're a web design agency. I'm sure you've got a fairly good idea of who the people within any organization would be who could potentially purchase your product. And that should give you a really good starting point. More often than not, that'll get you on the right track. But if there's a specific sort of process point you'd like to speak about, a member of my team, maybe myself, will be happy to sort of pick this up and see if we can have a bit more of a chat with you. The other question you raised was, so you don't push leads to HubSpot? Yes, we do. So there's a distinction there between the two things. There's HubSpot CRM, which operates exactly the same way, more or less, as what I just demonstrated with Pipedrive, which is just picking up leads, forwarding them through. But the wider HubSpot product, in terms of identifying people who've seen emails that you've sent and identifying them as individuals, I think I'm right in saying, Carlo, unless you want to tell me I'm wrong, is separate and therefore doesn't work like MailChimp does today. Is that correct?
Yeah, sure.
Nice. I think we might have. Do we have any other questions? Okay, I think we've covered everything. I'm just going to drop into the chat now the support@leadfeeder.com email address, which is a great place to start if you have questions that follow from what we've talked about today. Normally it would be on our final slide here, but we forgot to edit. But if you have any questions that you would like to pick up, send them across to support. Pina or a member of her team will distribute them out to the right members of our team to get them answered for you. And if the same goes for, as you get in touch there, if there are, follow-ups, if you'd like to talk to us on an individual basis to get your setup exactly how you would like it to be, then we'll be happy to pick up the conversation from there. apart from that, I think the only thing left to say is thank you very much, everybody, for joining. Thank you, Pinya. Thank you, Carlo. Thank you, everybody, for submitting questions. And we'll see you all soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.